Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Wale, and today I would like to introduce you to Trevor and Joel. Joel works mostly with under 40s. His lead experience puts him in a unique position to understand your situation. Trevor, on the other hand, works mostly with over 60s, but has had the luxury of starting with these clients when they were just like you. So, without much further ado, I'll be handing you over to Trevor, who'll be running this presentation.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much. As I said, we're kind of diving right in, and we hope to be done in around 20 minutes. So it's not going to be a marathon for any of us. I want to talk about why money. And maybe you're thinking I'm going to give you a history lesson, was kind of my major back in school. I could do that. We could talk about why money in terms of debt or legal. There's lots of different ways that we could talk about why money. But I really want you to get you thinking in the first part of this is why money for you? That's really the question that I want you to keep forefront in your mind as we go forward. I'm going to start with well, I'm having fun exercise, so I'm going to call this my fun exercise for the team. Is good news. I've just given everyone a Rolex. Welcome, you're welcome. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty neat watch. They're pretty highly sought after. I have a cousin who has two of them and swears by them, loves them, best thing ever. This gift, though, comes with a couple of stipulations. One, you have to wear it, has to be for you. You can't sell it and you can't pass it on. You still want the Rolex. Let me give you a couple of hints. Check your wrists. Is there a watch on there already? If there isn't, it's probably not going to be as exciting. If it is it a smartwatch? Because this Rolex ain't so smart. It just tells time and date. Huh. For me, I wear a watch when I run. The Rolex can't help me do any of those things. It doesn't give me data, won't talk to my things, won't track my runs, won't look at my pacing. Huh. But when you think about why money, Rolex spends an awful lot of money convincing all of us that we need a Rolex. I need a Rolex, you need a Rolex, everybody needs a Rolex. And yet, if we didn't have another value, if that was it, it's the really good question about, do I really need a Rolex? Is this what I need to spend my money on? Marketing is just going to continue, and it bombards us from every single area. Bringing that level of awareness to it is a really good first step. So, okay, companies are going to try to sell you, not just companies. People, you are going to see Trevor's church pictures. Because when I travel, and I think everyone should travel, I love seeing churches, temples, synagogues. I think it's a really interesting comment on civilization. This is a beautiful church in Chile. It's all built out of wood. There's not one nail in it. It's been around for over 200 years. It's a comment on everybody around it. I love it. It's kind of what the interiors look like. And I can be dazzled. I can spend hours in buildings like this, just going from church to church to church to church. Have I sold you? Does your next trip include lots of churches? Hold on a second. What I was sharing is why money for me. What I like to do is travel, and I like to see civilization when I do that. But maybe you're a camper. Maybe for you, the best thing that you can think of is spending a weekend in the mountains under snow. I have friends who snow camp. We don't have the same interests. And yet, sincerely, they'll talk about it as if everybody should camp in the snow. Just like I'm telling you, everyone should go see churches on their travels. But if you step back, realizing, no, maybe this isn't for me. Why money? I think as you spend some time answering this question and just taking the idea of, as people market to me, as friends or family try to influence me, and keep coming back again and again to why money for you, you're at the first learning block of wealth. Because wealth isn't a big lottery win or making the most money. It's about finding the ways that your money works the best for you. It's about finding the ways that your money works best for you, not for anyone else. And then if you can let you go and stop trying to influence people, well, that's a step in the distant future. But why money for you is a really good thing. I want to talk about three things that you can do with your money. Three? There's only three? There's only three things. And if you remember these three things and prioritize them, I believe this is the path to wealth. The first thing you can do with your money is save it. Uh, well, I'm excited about that, but maybe you aren't. But let me give you a little bit of insight in terms of why saving is so important. Interesting enough, people putting away just $500 a month, which isn't a ton, were actually less stressed about dollars, finances, and the world in general. It's a great study recently out of the UK that just talked about that. Notice I didn't say what they were saving for, that they had to have some really awesome purpose, but just that they were saving regularly. When I look over the years at my clients who've accumulated wealth, savings is the number one most important fundamental part of that. One of my clients for years had a garage account. They moved into a house in Calgary without a garage. Didn't take very many winters to think this was a terrible idea. And so they started to save for a garage. Great. After they had enough to buy the garage, they built it and they still kept the garage account. 50 years later, they still have the garage account. And it's where their savings go for other goals. Having a savings account is really one of the best things that you can do in terms of building your wealth and making it hit your goals, not anybody else's. So that's the first thing you can do with your money. Second thing you can do with your money, you can give it. I should give my money away. Oh my goodness gracious. I didn't say all of it. I didn't even recommend a dollar figure. But if there's causes that you care about, remember why money for you. One of the important things to really consider is what are those causes that are important to you in your heart and really would reflect well with your values. Maybe you're someone who's like, oh, the Meow Foundation. If we could get the Meow Foundation, you love cats. Another one's going to talk about ARF because they like dogs. Maybe you like, maybe not like, or maybe you've had family who's had to deal with Alzheimer's. It's one of the causes that I run for. But when you're giving dollars to causes that you feel align with your values, you're actually putting your money where your mouth is. And again, what happens is you start to feel less stressed about dollars and cents and just finances in general. So, give is the second thing you should do with your dollars. And then what do you do with what's left? So, you've saved some, you've given some, you get to spend it. And interesting, you get to spend it guilt free. I'm going to quote my dad. My dad worked over 40 years in the financial field. He said, you show me someone who's saving and giving 10%, let's say, and living on 90, and I'll show you someone who's going to be successful in the future. What my dad had seen over his really long career is that people were able to live within their means. In other words, they'd save their priorities, they'd give into causes they cared about, and then they spent the rest. They never got into trouble. It's not that life never threw them curveballs or that it was always smooth sailing, but they always had the ability to bounce back quickly. And that's an important thing. So when you think about these things, again, why money for you? If there's only three things you can do with it, it's not about making the most money in the world. That'd be great. It is about getting the most enjoyment from the dollars that you actually bring into your house. Saving for things that are important to you, giving to causes that you support, and spending the rest and having a good old time doing it. Those mindsets are really what we would call the basis of Finance 101. The let me get my thinking right so that when other ideas, I know how to approach them. We're not going to leave you here. We really did want to make this Finance 101. So, in addition to the mindset, Joel's specifically going to talk about something that we run into an awful lot, and that fun thing is income tax. Joel?
Thank you, Trevor. Let's talk about tax, everyone's favorite topic, the necessary evil. So getting into this, we're going to start off with using some approximations, but it's roughly about the first $20,000 that you're at a 0% tax bracket. So if you never want to pay tax, just earn $20,000 and you're good to go. No, that's not going to get you very far when we're talking about goals, saving, spending, everything like that. But In Canada, we have what's called the marginal tax bracket system, and we'll break that down in a little bit more detail. So the first $20,000 of tax or of income is tax free. Now the next 30,000 is taxed at 23%. So on a $50,000 income, you're going to pay about $6,900 in tax. Now, a common misconception is that if somebody's making $50,000, they're in that 23% tax bracket. They think that they're going to be paying 23% on all 50,000, and that is not accurate. So the next tax bracket that we're going to look at is going to be $100,000 in income. So remember, first 20,000, 0% tax. Next 30,000, you're going to be paying 23%. So $6,900 in tax on the next 30. Now the remaining 50, you're going to be paying 30.5%. So about $15,250 in tax. So if you add this all together on $100,000 in income, you're going to be paying $22,150 in tax. And it's a very common misconception that once you're at a tax bracket, you're paying that on the whole amount. It happens all the time. I had a friend just a couple weeks ago. He goes, "Okay, Joel, I made 200,000. I'm at a 40% tax bracket, so I got to pay $80,000 in tax." And I just broke this down for him step by step and said, no, it's actually more like $72,000. So very important to understand these tax brackets and how they work for you and how much tax you're paying in your own household. And with that, I'm going to transition over to Trevor, who's going to show you how to keep more money in your pocket and out of the government's.
Not that the government doesn't do stuff for our income tax and for federal elections, but I think it's important. As Joel said, the marginal tax rate is really an important understanding because we're going to talk about sort of three different investment vehicles. And we're not going to talk about investments tonight. We're just going to talk about the vehicles and give you a really solid understanding. The first one's RSPs. I'm going to give the government credit. This is brilliantly named. It's a registered retirement savings plan. It's right there in the name. When should I put money into this? When you're saving for retirement. Well, there's some other functionality to it. I think that's the biggest piece. And when I talk to anyone on the street, and if they said, "Oh, I don't like RSPs," just kind of ask gently, "Did you have to take it out early?" "Oh, yeah." They're really meant for retirement. This is essentially a way for you to build your own pension. That's the advantage of RSPs. So that's what they should be for. The other advantage of RSPs, which ties nicely into Joel's tax piece, is that when you contribute to an RSP, you actually lower your tax bill. Essentially, if you're making $100,000, as Joel said, you owed about $22,000 worth of tax. If you put $10,000 into an RSP, guess what? You're only taxed as if you earned $90,000. If you paid the whole tax, you're getting about $3,000 of tax back. That's the advantage of RSPs. They're for retirement, and when you put them in, you get a great tax savings that year. Later on, when you go to take them out, you're going to pay tax on that as well. So it is very much like a pension when you think of RSPs. So the first vehicle that we have in Canada, the one that almost everyone's familiar with, is the retirement savings plan. The second one that many of you are familiar with, because I see you use them, is tax-free savings accounts. I'm going to say again, really brilliantly named. What should go in here? Savings. Oh, that's ninja level stuff, but it's really well named. So a savings rate, even if it's getting you 2 or 3%, the growth that goes in there is tax-free. Now, here's the difference though. That $100,000, you put 10,000 into the TFSA, it's invisible. That's why I didn't show it, because the government thinks it doesn't exist. Now, the growth will never be taxed again, but you never got a deduction. But if you need money in a savings account because some of your goals are coming up and they're more immediate, this is absolutely where it should be going. If it's for retirement, it goes in the retirement account, and yeah, you get the benefit. Now, just in the last few years, the government's actually combined, I think, what's really critical for this age group, and it's the first time home savers account. So if you haven't, maybe not super familiar with this, the first time home savers account really combines the best of RSPs and the best of TFSAs. But again, it's really well named, home savers account. So you know automatically what the goal should be with this account. If you're making $100,000 and you put it in, you get a full refund. You're like, "Oh, yay." And on a home purchase, you can take the dollars out tax-free and not owe it back or have to repay it or do anything else. And it can go directly to your down payment. So you got the benefit of both an RSP deduction and then the flexibility of a tax-free savings account, provided you use it to buy a home. So when we look at that piece, so we cover off basically the three pieces. You've got RSPs, retirement savings. You got tax-free savings account, a savings account. And you got a first home savers account, save for that first home. Those are really the big vehicles. Okay, let's take you back as we wrap this up. We'll leave a nice spot for questions and answers. This is what we call Finance 101. We're going to continue this series over the course of this year and really talk about debt, estate, insurance, and investments. Notice where investments go. They're right at the bottom. Because if you don't have good saving habits, don't have your debt and insurance and estate under control, investments can just explode overnight and you need the money. And now, much like what's going on in the market today, things are a little bit volatile and it's not convenient. So getting the order right is really important. But my takeaways again for you this evening are, why money for you? Where is it that you actually want money in your life? Where do you get the most enjoyment? Where is money a necessity for you? And then the next thing is just the three things that you can do with your money that you should do with your money. That you should save some of it, that you should give some of it to causes you care about, and definitely that you should spend the rest without any guilt and enjoyment. Those things are going to help you. Joel talked very nicely about marginal tax rates, and that understanding, I'm going to tell you, we see smart people, very long-time professionals who don't understand that. You're actually got quite a leg up. And then just knowing the three vehicles in Canada, one's for retirement, one's a savings account, and the other one is for your first-time home buyers, really does put you in a nice advantage. So I'm going to just give me 1 second.